Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast, episode 73, I believe. It is Sunday, about a little bit after 5 p.m. Eastern time. Just witnessed NBA All-Star Saturday night. We got the All-Star game coming up in a couple hours. And, lots of topics going on now that we got football kind of out of the way, although football off season seems to take everything over within the next couple of months until the draft. So we got lots to talk about there, and, NBA season. I mean, I'd like to say, I keep wanting to say halfway point, but the All-Star game is so far past the halfway point of the NBA season that it doesn't even, really apply. There's only about 25 games left. So it's really about 3/4 of the way through the season. So we're just going to, we got some topics we want to bounce off each other. So we're just going to kind of go back and forth here. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, seems to be a lot of hand wringing, especially this week, about Justin Fields, the quarterback for the Bears. So the Bears have the number 1 pick in the draft. And of course that can't stop people from just saying, no, you should trade him and draft Bryce Young and, move on to a different quarterback. And, I know we both agree on this, but I just think in the NFL, it's really easy to go, oh, you know what? We need to get a different quarterback. Let's get rid of the guy that we have. But the problem is you have to keep in mind, what are you replacing him with? There's only, maybe 7 really good quarterbacks in the NFL, and everybody else is kind of, you could win with them. They might be really good. They're not great. You're probably not going to win Super Bowls with them, but they're still good quarterbacks. And so I feel.
Yeah, and after you get past the elite ones, there's, I don't know, maybe 10 that you're like, okay, if we get things right around this quarterback, we can win games. Maybe that's too many. I would have to really look. I'm just guessing 10 more or less. And, then there's like the really elite ones. And then after you get past those like 10 guys, then you have guys where it's like, maybe we need to go in a different direction, or we're waiting to make a trade or to draft somebody. So.
Yeah, I think, listen, full disclosure, obviously I'm a Justin Fields fan. I was yelling at people to draft him, in 2021. I feel like he was drafted too low and should have been picked before that. And, listen, has Justin Fields been great? No. He struggled throwing the ball a little bit, and, he needs some work, and the Bears don't have a great team around him, regardless of what Pro Football Focus says. They don't have an awesome team around him. It's not a terrible team. Now, they did lose 10 games in a row, but, I saw some stuff from him this year that's kind of like, all right, well, maybe that could be something. He had, 3 or 4 really good games where he did everything that you're supposed to do as a quarterback. He played really well. And I feel like, I think this is too early to be giving up on him, especially when the options are a lot of the guys in this draft. I think every quarterback in this draft is a project. I don't think any of them are ready to play right now. And I think it's too early to bail on a guy who has a lot of talent. And Justin Fields, he ran for over 1,000 yards this year. I know that's not the mark of a quarterback, but that's so. I just think it's a mistake to move on from him this quickly, especially when I don't think the options are fantastic.
Well, and the other thing is, you look at the Super Bowl, right? So Justin Fields ran for 1,000 yards. If you can get the right running game around him, and if he can make, a little marginal improvement throwing the ball, they can, make some shot plays, during games, then maybe they can make the playoffs. The NFC is kind of, it's not the AFC. I think people might watch this and see you saying this about Justin Fields and being like, well, wait a minute. It feels like you're giving him way more of a shot than we've given Tua. And it's like, maybe that's fair, but Tua's in the AFC. In the NFC, the 49ers got to the NFC Championship game with Brock Purdy. So I think you can kind of talk yourself into it. And yeah, it's very easy. And again, I'm well aware that a lot of this, I don't know how much, but a decent amount of stuff that people say on sports talk radio or on these talking head shows on ESPN, FS1, and YouTube and whatever else. a lot of stuff they're saying is just to get clicks and to get attention. So it's more provocative to say, well, you need to dump this guy and then draft somebody else, right? That's just a way more provocative thing to say, and that's part of the reason a lot of times that's why people will say different things like that. So it's easy to say that, but at the same time, the NFC is just, it's not that great. So you could see a scenario where they could get into the playoffs, and there's always it's funny, we're ripping on Colin Cowherd because he's been saying they need to trade Justin Fields and then, use their draft pick on a quarterback. But, he has pointed out that I totally forgot what I was going to say. Something about the NFC being, no. He's correctly pointed out, for the last few years that there's always turnover in the playoff teams. You get like close to half the teams that made it don't make it the next year. There are new teams in there. So, if you're a Bears fan or you're the Bears front office, then you can kind of talk yourself into, let's give this guy another year in the same system, and let's see if we can build more around him, and let's see if we can, make the playoffs this year, which would obviously be a step up from losing 10 games in a row.
Well, and the thing is, I'm not going to get rid of a guy who's 6'3", 230 pounds and can run, as a super athlete at quarterback for a guy who might be 6 feet tall and is under 200 pounds. I'm sorry. I know everybody wants to tell me how great of a quarterback and what a talent Bryce Young is. I get it, but I'm not drafting a quarterback that small in the first round. I'm just not doing it. I just feel like I'm drafting prototypical size as a first round pick. I'm not messing around with this guy might be the exception to the rule. And so that's where I just feel like people are, now that Justin Fields looks like he's, kind of struggling in the NFL a little bit, we now assume that the guy coming in from college is going to be better. And most of the time, that's not the case. So I just think, listen, I think Bryce Young has to go to the right situation. I don't think the Bears situation is right for him at all. I don't think Bryce Young survives behind the Bears offensive line. Justin Fields can at least run while he's figuring out, how to play NFL quarterback. I just think that's your best option, if you're the Bears. And, listen, I understand the general manager wants to keep his job, and it's easier to keep your job if you draft a rookie, and then you figure, oh, well, they'll give me 4 or 5 years with this guy, and it gives me more time. But I just think the Bears have so many holes that it's, they shouldn't really be worried about, a quarterback right now. I think they should be fixing all kinds of other holes that they have on their team. And by the way, if they're really bad again, then they can draft a quarterback next year when there's 2 guys that are probably better than all of these guys are. So I think Caleb Williams will be the number 1 pick this year by 100 miles. And I don't think it's, by the way, I don't think it's ridiculous to talk about it. I think it's okay to examine all the possibilities, and I think the Bears should absolutely do that. I think if a trade comes along where they can move down and get a bunch more picks, they should absolutely do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is, I guess with Justin Fields, the idea of him being one of the best quarterbacks in the league, that's probably, we're probably not going to be, we're not talking about that now. And maybe we won't be talking about that with him ever. I don't know. Because we haven't really seen it yet. We've seen talent, but we just haven't seen enough of, But I don't know. Maybe he's a gym rat and he puts in the work in the offseason like Jalen Hurts did, and he comes back and he's an even better thrower. I don't know. But when you're in the position of the Bears, which that's the position a lot of teams are in, you have a guy you can see talent. You need to put stuff around him because he's not necessarily going to elevate what's around him because there's only a few guys in the league who do that.
Right.
So you have to be careful comparing, Justin Fields or guys like him to the elite quarterbacks in the league because it's just not that way. And I understand we're Dolphins fans. We have Tua. I understand you want to get rid of a guy for an elite quarterback, it's, when you watch a team when you don't have an elite quarterback, you're just the whole time you're like, can we trade this guy out? But sometimes that's not necessarily possible. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener. It's kind of like the best analogy I can make of this is like you've been in a job a while. Should you go interview for another job, should you take another job? Because you may think, oh, well, this could be better. It's still an unknown. You haven't worked there before. You don't really know, So you have to be careful thinking. Sometimes the grass is greener, but you really have to be careful thinking that, especially when you're going on limited information, which, guys, with these draft picks, that's what we have. We have limited information. They don't play as much as they used to in years past because they get drafted so quickly. I mean, I understand they've been playing 7-on-7 for, since they were, young teenagers or whatever, but we still don't get as many college games with them, so it's much harder to know, And now we've got these guys playing in these systems that are very college friendly, and even though college concepts have come into the NFL, like it's not, you still on some level need to learn to play quarterback like an NFL quarterback, and that's just with these guys. There's a learning curve, and so it's difficult to tell.
And you're right about the Jalen Hurts comparison. The knock on Jalen Hurts was he can't be accurate enough throwing the ball. But he showed it in the Super Bowl that he's capable of, he worked on it. He's capable of doing it. And that's Justin Fields is kind of in the same boat. He's in that Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts territory where that's what you look at and go, well, that's what we have to point towards if that's how we're going to succeed. Look, the Bears like Justin Fields. The offensive coordinator's really high on him. Like, I don't get, this is not a situation where it's like, oh, you know what? We got to get rid of this guy. He's not, I'm not convinced the Bears are completely sold on we need to do better than this. I think it's to the point now where it's kind of funny. I think the teams actually have more faith in a lot of these guys than we do.
Yeah.
You find the media and fans, well, they want to move on from a quarterback way before the team ever does. So
and that's because the team's got the salary cap to consider, and then you have to consider, like you've been saying, what else are you going to get? What's better? What can you get out there? What's out there that's better that you can get? And if you can't just, we'll just change for the sake of change. Well, okay, but if you're wrong, you're screwed. So, especially the general manager and the coach potentially, and whoever else.
I would rather take the risk that Justin Fields, could be pretty good at some point, than take the risk that Bryce Young might succeed. I'll take the Justin Fields chance because that guy's a really good athlete and he's got things to fall back on if Plan A doesn't work out. I wouldn't go for one of these other guys.
Well, there is something to be said for, if you're going to start over with a quarterback, then it's basically like you need to invest in that quarterback and say, this is our guy for the next 2 or 3 years, and give him time to develop and have the same system and whatever else. And, I think that is important. Like if you really want to see what you can get out of a quarterback, and he hasn't really gotten that because he had one regime that brought him in, they got fired, and then they brought somebody else in. So he's only had 1 year in that system.
Yeah, I think that if I don't think you should bail on a quarterback. I think what you want to do is make your team, the team around that quarterback, as good as you possibly can, so that when a quarterback becomes available, they want to come to your team. I think the NFL needs to mirror the NBA like this. You need to get assets on your team, make the roster as good as you can, do the best you can with the quarterback that you have, so that way when the right quarterback becomes available, you're ready. And that's what I think.
Bay or
the Rams.
The Rams, yeah, exactly.
I think that's what you want to do. So yeah,
the Broncos tried to do that and it blew up in their face last year. Maybe it ends up working this year. I don't know. We'll see.
And then they hired Sean Payton to try to fix it. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so moving on to more NFL stuff. So Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, has now taken the offensive coordinator job for the Washington Commanders. Still getting used to saying that. So, which is kind of strange because Eric Bieniemy, from what I heard this week, has had 16 head coaching interviews in the past few years.
Yeah.
And hasn't been hired for one of them, which is very puzzling considering the Chiefs' success, especially on offense.
Right. Yeah, so it's one of those. The main thing that I was thinking about this week was, and look, I don't know very much about Eric Bieniemy. I don't know what he's like in these interviews. I don't know necessarily how qualified he is, but Well, I mean, he seems to be pretty qualified. He's been an offensive coordinator for a while now, so you know how qualified he is to be a head coach. So, but I just feel like maybe there's some people thinking, well, you know, the teams are hiring who's the most qualified for the job, and I just look around at the hires in the NFL and go, that's complete bullshit. These teams don't. Some of these teams do, but a lot of them, they're not hiring the most qualified guy for the job. They're just like, oh, well, this guy over here, let's just hire him. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury was the coach of the Cardinals for 3 years. He had a losing record in college. He wasn't even an NFL coach or coordinator. Okay. I'm trying to think who else. Jeff Saturday became an interim coach for the Colts. Totally unqualified for that position. No offense to him. He seems like a nice guy. That's what everybody says. And he's a pretty good analyst at ESPN. And I'm trying to think of who else. I mean,
well, and think about the guys who don't get hired. You know, they're sitting out there and nobody hires them. Doug Peterson for Jacksonville.
Yeah.
He was available for the last couple of years. Like, and you guys all could have gotten him, and you didn't. So you're
Joe
absolutely
Judge gets
right.
hired by the Giants. I mean, completely ridiculous hire. He was completely out of his depth. I mean, I think the worst one is you know, you've been in the NFL being an assistant coach, a coordinator for years and years and years, and then a team hires a college coach. It's like, dude, like, you know, and a lot of times with the college coaches, it doesn't work. I mean, from what we've seen, it really doesn't work. I mean, Matt Rule leaves. The Panthers dump a bunch of people, and then they start winning games. You know, so yeah, just around the league, you see teams that'll just like they'll hire somebody. You're like, who the hell is that? You know,
Matt Patricia hired by the Lions.
Yeah,
you know, when so both the Eagles coordinators get jobs immediately. When, you know, I think one of them, either Jonathan Gannon's the defensive coordinator or Shane Steichen, they had 1 year. Or no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Kevin O'Connell, the guy who got the Vikings job.
Yeah,
he was only a coordinator for 1 year. So, this idea that qualifications, it's basically like, do you interview well? Do they like you? You know, can you sell yourself?
Somebody suggests them to you, like, you know, you have some connection to them. You have some connection to someone that knows them. Like, you know, I mean, the Giants hiring Joe Judge was like, well, he's worked with Belichick, so, I mean, just a really terrible way to make decisions on who's going to be the coach of your football team.
Yeah, I feel I don't know. I don't know what Eric Bieniemy's doing. I feel, you know, something's definitely not right. The fact that he hasn't been offered a head coaching job with all of these other guys that have gotten head coaching jobs, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It feels like he's being passed around to interview just to satisfy the Rooney Rule. So that's a little disturbing. I feel like the same stuff is happening to Brian Flores, even though he got a job with the Vikings. So I don't know. I hope it works out for him in Washington, but man, this is a gigantic step down from being the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs to now going to the Commanders.
Well, I mean, that he's going to be an assistant head coach. So now it's kind of like, you know, say he's at this job for a few more years. Then it's going to be like, well, what are they going to say next? You know, if he's been an assistant head coach, you know, if he's got that in his title, in addition to being offensive coordinator, you know, and if he's going to the Commanders, then it's like, okay, well, he's calling the plays, even though the idea that you have to be calling plays to become a head coach is complete bullshit. Because you see guys all the time, that guy didn't call the plays, but he gets the job. Like, you know, so it's just one of those things where you see it and you just go, look, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it's just like, this is patently absurd on its face. And by the way, this isn't just with NFL head coaches. I mean, you see this in plenty of industries where people get hired and you're like, why the fuck are you hiring them? It's like, well, I know his brother or something. Like, it's some bullshit, you know, that's just, you see it throughout the economy, but it's just, with this one, it's kind of, it seems.
Well, yeah, with all the dismal failures the NFL has had the past few years, like Nathaniel Hackett with Denver this past season, you know, it's a mess. Freddie Kitchens with the Browns a few years ago. Like, it's ridiculous that, you know, but I will say most of the teams making bad hires are bad teams. Generally, poorly run organizations, they hire and fire the wrong people. Yeah. And that's why their teams don't work. So, you know, the NFL's like is no different than any other corporation. There's some people who are good at it and some people who are just not.
Yeah.
So anyway, other NFL stuff. So I know you wanted to talk about Lamar Jackson contract. Still hasn't signed anything yet.
So, well, first of all, and I said this before, like, he's going to be on the Ravens next year. I pretty much have zero doubt about that, whether he's on a new contract or whether he's franchised. But he's not being represented by an agent, and I just think he's making a gigantic mistake. I feel like I feel like the Ravens want him, and they should have been able to work something out by now. The reports are they're like $100 million apart. I don't know if that's like the guaranteed money or what. I don't know if I guess there's been some reporting that, he wants the amount of guaranteed money that Deshaun Watson got. And it's like, well, they're the Browns. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Okay. They never should have given him that contract. That's completely ridiculous. And it's completely ridiculous for other teams to have to be held to that standard, because the Browns did it, So I just, sometimes people are like, oh, well, he's kind of unique and whatever. You know what? Bullshit. Enough of this crap. Get a fucking agent. Okay? Because he's been hurt the last 2 years, missed a bunch of games, couldn't play they made the playoffs, couldn't play in the playoff game again. He hasn't played well in the playoffs, so it'd be nice if he could go into a playoff game and, do some stuff well. So it's like, dude, you're not getting any younger. You've been getting injured. At first you weren't getting injured. Now you're getting injured every year. Okay? You need to take what you can get. Now, I'm not saying you take some, piece of shit lowball offer. I'm not saying that. But you basically, from what I've heard from other people, is you have an agent and then basically the other team tries to get to a point where they give you a number where you can't say no. Even though you might want a little more, you just decide to say yes. Okay? And it's just, I understand the whole betting on yourself thing, but it's like, dude, like, you could get injured and you could get nothing. Well, I don't want to say nothing, but you could really miss out on a lot of money. Okay. So it benefits you to get this done quicker rather than later. And the team wants him there. Okay. So, right. So he'll have some guaranteed money. He'll get that. And then it's not like they're just going to, unless he's absolutely awful, it's not like they're just going to cut him.
Right.
The Ravens have built their entire offense around him. The backup quarterback they has to kind of, when I was watching him play in the playoff game, I'm like, he looks like Lamar Jackson. So they've built the entire team around you. Okay? So, the fact that it's like, dude, get it, cut this bullshit out, act like a professional, and get an agent. Because, you can't have your, I guess he's saying he negotiates or his mother negotiates on his behalf. Come on. So
yeah, it's probably a bad idea. It's not the best way to get your financial business taken care of. I still think they're going to get this done. I think it would be ridiculous if they have to franchise tag him. And in the NFL, the teams kind of have the power. I hate to, I know the players don't want to hear that, and they don't think it's, and to some of these guys, I don't like the franchise tag. I think it's kind of unfair for some of these players to be hamstrung this way, but it does do a better job of keeping guys on the team that they're on. It does kind of limit a free agent frenzy like we see in the NBA where guys are requesting trades and all that stuff. And the threat of just not even doing it, but just the threat of having the franchise tag does make it a better product, I think. So, but like you said, figure out the guaranteed money. Does he really think that after, let's say it's a 5-year deal, after 3 years, they're just going to get rid of him? They probably are going to ask him to restructure it after that, but okay. I just think
he needs an experienced agent in his ear, explaining these things. So, he kind of understands what's going on, cause that's the thing. Like there's probably all kinds of details about this stuff that we don't know or we're not privy to because we're not in these negotiations. You need someone there who's been through it before and can explain these things. So you kind of figure out, what's the, how do I best, protect my interests and get the money while it's there to be had. So,
Yeah, it's a tough deal. But in this case, I feel like the Ravens are smart. They're not, this isn't, they're not trying to pull a fast one on him. And I just feel like they're going to eventually get, they're going to eventually get there. It just might, it might take a little time. And I think like the franchise tag is it's such a waste of time and energy. You're just, get the money. I agree with you. Get the money that's there. Get it while you can get it, man, because, you don't know. In the NFL, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, and look, it's not like, dude, okay, I know you won an MVP, but it's not like you've won the Super Bowl. Okay? I mean, you haven't played well in the playoffs. So they're offering you a contract. It's not like they're not offering you a contract because they realize you're valuable. They've built the entire structure of the offense around you. So, yeah, it's one of those things, and I said this before, like Lamar Jackson is going to be on the Ravens next year, period. Okay? But Justin Fields is going to be on the Bears next year, period. I'm going on a limb saying that. I don't feel like I'm going to be wrong. So,
yeah, the odds are definitely in your favor. All right, any more NFL stuff, or did you want to move on to?
Yeah, I mean, I did want to. I should have mentioned this with the Justin Fields thing, but we listened to a lot of the Herd with Colin Cowherd, and I think I feel like you can divide his show into different eras. This is the era of the move off player X. This is the move off player X era where he just anyone he can find, he talks about moving off, and he uses that phrase, moving off of. You got to move off Anthony Davis. You got to move off Russell Westbrook. You got to move off Justin Fields. You got to move off Aaron Rodgers. You got to move off, whoever. There's a bunch of other ones. I mean, I'm sure there's other NBA players I can think of. You got to move off Carmelo Anthony. You got to move off of Ben Simmons, or you got to move off of Joel Embiid. You got to move off of, I mean, before the move off era, it was the Baker Mayfield every day. Which I don't understand why that became a thing. And then before that, it was the every 4 or 5 days I'm going to do the point guard quarterback rant of here's what I want in my point guard and my quarterback, which he doesn't do as much anymore. But
to be fair to Cowherd, like he did not say the Bears need to move off Justin Fields. What he says is they should consider it. Like, this idea that, that the Bears are set and they shouldn't, and he's also, saying that, well, the Bears are, everyone's saying that Justin Fields had nothing around him, which is never true in the NFL. There's always stuff, for the most part. I mean, 30 out of 32 teams, I would say, like there's stuff there you can work with. Like it's not, they're all NFL players. So he was not saying that, they should definitely move off him. And then he presented his argument to Peter King, and Peter King said, no, they shouldn't move off him, and I don't think they're going to. And I generally agree with that. Now, again, if somebody blows me away with an offer, of course. I get people offering to buy my house all the time. Now, if they're willing to pay me, 200 times over market value, sure, absolutely. We'll have a conversation. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm not selling my house to you for market value because no, I like living here. I have no reason to sell it.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how I kind of see that. And, yeah, I have bigger problems with other takes from Colin Cowherd than the Justin Fields one. The Justin Fields one, it seems like it was just to make Bears fans angry.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, it's annoying, any talk about Aaron Rodgers just gets annoying because there's nothing happening. Like there's literally nothing happening. We're just, what's the latest going on? Well, the Packers are kind of sick of Aaron Rodgers. And I'm just like, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, if someone, again, I'm going to say that he's going to be on the Packers next year if he's playing next year. And I could end up being proven wrong. I'm going to really stick to that. But, if some team comes along and they're going to, sell the farm for Aaron Rodgers, like then you kind of got to look at it, because Aaron Rodgers, it's not like he has that much time left and he is a huge cap hit. So, we'll see. But it's just all this stuff is just getting so boring and ridiculous. Like I just don't tell me when he makes a decision. I don't. And then the other thing is where we're talking about he needs to rush to make a decision. He's got till free agency doesn't start until what, March, like the 15th,
March 15th,
or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's doing his 4-day darkness retreat, whatever. I don't see why he needs to be like, it's the season just ended. I don't see why he needs to be like, in deep communication with the team yet. I don't really see if they don't know, going into April and May, then it's kind of like, all right, well, he needs to make up his mind, but he's got time.
Yeah. I don't think there's any news on it, and nobody really has any news. They just put stuff out. These are just reporters putting stuff out there to try to get you to pay attention to it. It all takes me back to Adam Schefter, the day of last year's draft, reporting that, Aaron Rodgers didn't want to be there anymore, or whatever it was, that the Packers were considering trading him, no, it wasn't considering trading him. Aaron Rodgers, it was something about, he wasn't sure that he wanted to stay there. And it was like, and they cornered him on it. He went on Adam Schefter went on Dan Patrick's show and was like, well, no, nobody really told me that, but this is just kind of stuff I was hearing that it said you decided to put out on the day of the draft. So the media is complicit in some of this Aaron Rodgers stuff. They really are, because Aaron is really not saying anything. If you take out the vaccine part of this, Aaron Rodgers is really nondescript. He doesn't really do that much. Like he doesn't have all kinds of drama. There really isn't anything really going on with him. So, this has been fabricated for I don't know how long. So we're here to spend 5 minutes on it to tell you that it's not a story.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about it when something actually happens, because nothing's happening.
Right. Yeah. So getting into the NBA stuff, I'm fascinated by where some teams are at, and where some people are at with these teams, where people's perceptions seem to lie on some of these teams. And so, the Lakers beat the Pelicans the other night. And they looked, they finally got the new guys from the trade. They got, Jared Vanderbilt and D'Angelo Russell, and I forget who the other guy is. Malik Beasley, right. So they got some new players, and they looked really good against the Pelicans, who didn't have Zion Williamson, by the way. And the Pelicans have basically been terrible for the last month or so. They've really, really fallen apart. So the Lakers managed to win that game, and Colin Howard's going crazy that, oh man, look at the Lakers. Like, this is definitely a playoff team, even though they're still, 3 or 4 games out of the playoffs. And he's like, oh, I definitely think the Lakers are going to be trouble if they get into the playoffs. Like, and so they cornered him on a question. Well, would you take him over Denver? He's like, no, I would take LeBron Anthony Davis over Denver. Like, they'll beat Denver in a playoff series. And I'm just shaking my head. Like, are we really, like, the Lakers play one good game after this trade? We're really falling for the Lakers as a real team at this point. Like, look, the Lakers might make the playoffs, because you don't have to be very good to make the playoffs in the West right now. So they might make the playoffs, but this team isn't going anywhere. That's number one. Number two, this idea that, Russell Westbrook, that was the problem. See, once we got rid of Russell Westbrook, everything's better now, because, he was terrible, and he really ruined the team. Okay, I'm just going to push back on that. Like, this is not all Russell Westbrook's fault. Like, did he play great? No, but you knew what Russell Westbrook was when you got him. Okay? That's number one. You knew this was a problem last season. This season, you've got him coming off the bench, so he doesn't even really affect the bottom line that much. Okay? He's coming in off the bench, scoring a bunch of points when he comes in, and that's it. So he's not the reason that this roster was bad. Okay? The team made the Westbrook trade was really dumb. Not because they got Russell Westbrook, because they traded away the other guys who were helping to make their team good. They traded away the core of the team that was defense, shooting, all of those things that matter in today's NBA. Yeah. And they traded that away to get Russell Westbrook, and now it's all Russell Westbrook's fault that he doesn't fit into blah blah blah. And it's like, you knew what Russell Westbrook was. You don't go to the jump into the lion cage and then be surprised when the lion eats you. He's a lion. That's what they do. This is how Russell Westbrook plays. You knew that when you got him. So you can't now say, oh, well, it's his fault that blah, blah, blah. How about the fact that Anthony Davis is injured half the time and the other half of the time he's kind of not interested?
Yeah.
Maybe that has more to do with it than Russell Westbrook coming off the bench.
LeBron's been hurt, and LeBron isn't he's not the player that he used to be, particularly on defense, and especially when you don't surround him with shooters. So, the Lakers have been a poorly run franchise for, 13 years now, really. And, they won the one championship. Yeah, they had a bubble, and they, credit to LeBron and Anthony Davis. But, and the team they had around them, they shot threes well, and they played defense. But beyond that, they've been terrible. Absolutely terrible. And it's too easy to blame it on one player or even two or three players. The organization just from the top to the bottom is just not good. Okay? And I've said this multiple times, they didn't hire a real GM. Jeannie Buss seems to be, if you watch that documentary that was on Hulu, she seems to be intent on we're just going to run this like a family and whatever else. It's like, no, you need to hire the right people for the job. Okay?
Right.
And also, Frank Vogel was fine as their head coach. Okay, he had experience. He won the championship with them. And then you have a bad year, and then you fire him so you can bring in, an unproven guy. To me that seems pretty ridiculous. And obviously the Russell Westbrook thing, like you said, it wasn't so much having Russell Westbrook, it was trading away all that other stuff that they had won with. So it is what it is. That's kind of what we get with the Lakers, and I don't buy them. If the Nuggets are the 1 seed, the Lakers probably get in as the 8 seed, maybe. Just let's think of that. So the 8 seed is going to be the 1 seed. How many times has that happened? And you can say whatever you want. Oh, well, I think the Lakers are better than their record show. Look, on some level, I think that can be true if you're like one of the top 3 or 4 seeds in a conference. But when you're like 6, 7, 8, or you're in the play-in tournament, and I'm supposed to think you're better than your record says you are, no, I'm not just going to do that. Unless there's an extenuating circumstance.
It goes back to my criticism of this trade they finally made. Like, you knew this was a problem a year ago. Like, you've had plenty of time. You had trades on the table that could have alleviated some of these issues.
And they wasted time. They wasted,
and you didn't take them. So the reason your record is what it is because you were incompetent and didn't get a better team around LeBron. I was watching this team play the past couple of weeks. It's a bunch of guys no one's ever heard of. Guys so it's a bad roster. That's why you were in the situation that you were in. And so, yes, I think Russell Westbrook has some issues and some flaws so he has some things about his game that aren't going to change. Russell Westbrook is what Russell Westbrook is. But this is not, oh, Jesus, let's blame other people for it. And this is one thing where you can criticize LeBron for it. When things go bad, LeBron is just blaming everybody else and trying to get everybody on the team traded. And so I can't imagine, like, I feel kind of bad for Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram and, all those Josh Hart, the guys that were on the team before the Anthony Davis trade, when LeBron's just basically trying to trade them for a year. So it's got to be difficult to be on that team. And I can't imagine it was easy for Russell Westbrook. And I'm not saying, oh, we need to get Russell Westbrook on your team because he's a great player. No, listen, you want to win championships, Russell Westbrook's probably not going to be a big part of what you're doing. But this nonsense that, oh, we got Westbrook out, so now we're great. Come on. I don't buy it. I'm not convinced they're going to even make the playoffs, and even if they do, they're going to get smoked. The idea that they're going to beat one of these teams in the West is a joke.
If the Clippers have Kawhi and Paul George, and then they got all those other guys that they have, on the Zubats and, whoever, all the guys they have on the wing and all that stuff, like, you're telling me the Lakers are going to beat them? Okay? Hell, even if Kawhi Leonard got hurt again and you still had Paul George played pretty well in the playoffs 2 years ago, okay, after Kawhi got hurt. He showed me something, which everyone seems to forget about. They just refer back to the bubble. I'm like, did you watch the playoffs the next year? He was pretty damn good. So even with that, with all those other guys they have on there, like, if they kind of hit their stride, like, the Lakers aren't beating them. Are you kidding? And by the way, the Phoenix Suns, if they have to play the Clippers, that's going to be a problem.
Right.
I sort of said this last podcast, but I'm just pushing back on the idea that you can just throw something together with 25 games left and, you're just going to figure it all out right away. Like, no, you're not just going to figure it out right away. So that's just something I hear from people like, oh, well, you don't want to play this team in the playoffs. It's like, all right, we'll see.
Well, yeah, everyone's going to say that about the Lakers, and it's like, okay, LeBron is old. Like, how long do you think? Like, you think he's going to be, doing this in the playoffs? And LeBron's great. It's not a criticism of LeBron, but is Anthony Davis really going to deliver when it matters?
Or is he going to get hurt?
Right. So then it brings me on to teams that I don't understand where people are at with. Like, let's talk about the Warriors. We've been talking about this for the past few weeks, and from what I was watching Get Up the other day, and they were saying that a team that's not a top 3 seed, so outside of a top 3 seeds, hasn't won the championship since the 1995 Houston Rockets. So it's been 28 years since one team that's not a top, that's lower than the top 3 seeds, has actually won the championship. So I don't believe in this argument that, the Warriors get in, seeding doesn't matter. Like, look out, man, the Warriors are going to be dangerous. And the truth is, I think it's not that, the Warriors will figure it out, and it's not that, the Warriors are done, they have no chance. Right? It's somewhere in the middle. Like, the Warriors have real problems. Like, I was listening to a podcast with Kirk Goldsberry, and he's basically saying that the Warriors defense is not good. Like, it's not good. It's not good enough to win the championship. No team with a defense that bad has ever won the championship. He's like, it's one thing for you to be bad in the regular season and win the championship if you have an all-time historic team, right? If you have one of the greatest teams we've ever seen, if you have, the Heat with LeBron, if you have the Warriors, with the Steph and Durant Warriors, if you have, the Lakers with Matt, if you have a team like that, a historically great team, Bulls with Michael Jordan, you can take it easy at some points in the regular season and put it all together in the playoffs. We've seen that before. But this Warriors team is not, it's not that. It's not a historically great team. So the way they're playing defense is probably pretty close to what they are. Let's say in the playoffs they have Gary Payton back. Okay, yes, I do think they're going to be, obviously they're going to be better because the games really matter. But you can't continue like this as a 500 team, basically, and then think you're going to turn it on, with the last month of the season, and now you're going to be a championship contender.
Yeah. And by the way, do you think that the team is trying to play okay, but how do I put this? Do you think the team wants to be 500 right now? Do you think that was
Probably
the goal
not.
coming into the season? Do you think they want to be playing, really shitty defense? No, they obviously don't want to, but they are, which sort of leads you to think, well, maybe this is what they are right now. So, yeah, I just feel like this is especially with the NBA, this constantly happens. You don't want to face this team in the playoffs, and it's just like, the last time I really saw a team where they kind of took their foot off the gas in the regular season and then turned it on, like really, really did that, was the Celtics in 2010. And they almost won the championship. But, Kevin Garnett's a Hall of Famer. Paul Pierce is a Hall of Famer. Ray Allen's a Hall of Famer. And they still had a pretty good amount left, and they could play really good defense when they turned it on. So, yeah, I don't really see that from this team. And also, it's just like, okay, fine. Are you going to play in the playoffs? Are you going to be playing Kuminga out there with Draymond Green? Because that's two guys who the defense is not afraid of scoring. So,
right.
I'm just telling you. And you're hoping you're going to get Steph back. Is he going to be in game shape? Are you going to be able to rely on Klay Thompson being a consistent scorer? How good is Jordan Poole going to be in the playoffs? Is he going to be as good as he is in the regular season?
Also, Jordan Poole can't guard anybody.
Yeah. Right.
So you can't play him all the time.
I said last year their championship window was last year and this year, and there might not be a window this year. I don't know. It doesn't look promising.
I'm not saying the Warriors can't figure it out. Like I said, they're only about 4 games from being in the 3 seed. So it's not
Right.
like the West is so packed together. Like they're not not out of it, but this idea. I just think we're holding out this faith based on their past experience, and I don't think this is because they're. I don't necessarily think it's because of lack of effort. I think that's part of it, but I don't think it's just, they're just not trying hard enough. As soon as they try harder, they're going to be able to do this. I think it's a little more complicated than that. And listen, I know that what they were trying to do is take your dynasty and turn it over to these younger guys. Nobody's ever done that before. Like, no great team that's won championships had turned over the roster, gone to a bunch of young guys, and then they just continue right where they left off. It doesn't happen. So as soon as Duncan left the Spurs, you see what the Spurs are now.
Yeah.
As soon as Jordan leaves the Bulls, like, you can go through any of that, and it doesn't normally work out. And these young guys are probably not going to produce in the playoffs. In the NBA, you don't just come right in your first couple of years and you're great. That usually doesn't happen. It usually takes 3, 4, 5 years before you can really do what you need to do in the playoffs. So again, not saying the Warriors can't do it. I'm just saying, I don't have this undeniable faith that they're just going to turn it on and beat everybody in the West.
Yeah.
But to that end, like, why do I feel like nobody cares about the Denver Nuggets? We're just acting like the Denver Nuggets are chopped liver. They've never done anything before. We can't trust them in the playoffs, even though they have the MVP for the last 2 years running.
Potentially a 3-time MVP from what people are saying. I mean, it's between him and Giannis.
Right. I don't quite understand how that works. So I guess I'm going to have to buy a Denver jersey and a hat and start waving pom poms for him, because I don't understand the disrespect. Everyone acting like, people suggesting the Lakers could beat them in a playoff series. Like, what are you talking about? The other thing is, are they going to, the Warriors will beat them if, look what the Warriors did to them last year. Well, yeah, last year Denver didn't have Jamal Murray or Porter playing in the series. So, of course, they probably lost. Plus, Denver's upgraded their team now. They added Reggie Jackson. Like, this is not a slouch team. I understand Denver on defense. There are some issues, right? Jokic is your center. It's a bit of a problem. I get it. But these are things that can be worked around. And they beat the Clippers in the bubble. Like, they've beaten Portland in a playoff series. Like, I don't understand this nonsense that, Denver just has no chance because, it's familiarity. We just haven't seen them do it before. So we assume that they can't. And,
right.
I know everybody wants to say the West is wide open. The West is a bunch of flawed teams. That's what it is. The West is a bunch of teams with some holes. And so that's why you've got Denver and Memphis, the top 2 seeds, and those teams have holes. But
yeah.
I don't think it's, Denver's dominated the Clippers the past couple of years. And so I think a lot of the West playoffs is going to come down to matchups. And I'm sorry. Yeah, I believe in Denver more than the Lakers. I believe in Denver more than a bunch of these other teams, Sacramento, the Clippers. So I think we need to, to take it easy on, how we're just going to bypass them, even though they're probably going to be the number 1 seed.
Right. And acting like home court advantage doesn't matter at all. Like, I understand the travel's more comfortable and whatever, but no, it matters.
Having Game 7 at home matters.
Yeah.
And that's what home court advantage comes down to. It's not Game 1
players
and Game
shoot
2.
better at home.
Right. It's not having Game 1 and Game 2. It's having Game 7 when your season is on the line at home. That's what matters. And Denver actually does have a little bit of a home court advantage because of the altitude.
Yeah.
So I do believe that it makes a difference. And if you've ever watched the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs, when they're playing at home, it's just Denver and Utah, to me, very underrated. The national basketball audience doesn't know what those places are like. It's hard to go on the road and beat them in playoff games. The crowd is nuts. Those places are nuts. So I don't think it's going to be that simple. The other thing I want to talk about, I mean, it's clearly obvious to me Milwaukee and Boston are the 2 best teams in the East. I think they're probably, both teams are probably might end up being better than they were last year because they've added some more stuff on the edges. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be an awesome series. The game the other night between Milwaukee and Boston that went into overtime was really a tremendous game. I mean, the thing is, I look at it like this. Milwaukee is basically neck and neck with Boston, and Middleton missed 39 games already.
Yeah.
So, I kind of think, And I think those two teams are really going to fight for that number one seed, because having that Game 7 at home, especially for them, is going to be a really big deal.
So hopefully they meet. They're in the different sides of the bracket, so they meet in the conference finals and they don't meet in the second round.
Yeah, I don't think either team's catching them.
Yeah, no, I mean the Brooklyn will fall off obviously, and then Miami just they got Kevin Love off waivers or whatever, which that doesn't really matter. I mean that's fine, but I mean they didn't improve their team in the offseason. They probably got worse. So and the 76ers, there's no reason to buy them in the playoffs. They just don't. I mean, Embiid gives a shit and he goes out there and plays hard, but I don't know if the rest of the team can, rise up to the level they need to be able to beat Milwaukee or Boston.
I think there's a couple issues with Philadelphia. I've talked about this before. James Harden, flaming out in the playoffs and just deciding one of the games against the Heat last year, he just decided not to shoot anymore. I mean, I don't know what that is, but I can't believe you can't have players like that on your team if you're trying to win playoff series. Second thing is Doc Rivers is kind of, as a coach, is kind of past it. Like he doesn't really adjust like he should, at this point. He's not a modern coach. He doesn't adjust to the way the NBA is played today in the playoffs. He kind of sticks with his guys that he likes, and that's basically it. Even when every data point shows you that's a bad idea. So, Embiid usually gets banged up in the playoffs. Like I hope it doesn't happen. I think it's unfortunate that, the guys on this team and, he's so close to winning the MVP, can't win it. And then, the rest of this team doesn't, it's like they're not up to his level. So, I think Philadelphia would need everything to go their way, for them to really, make a run. But let's talk about Phoenix. So yeah, they don't have a whole lot of runway left to make it happen before the playoffs. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Kevin Durant's just so easy to fit onto a team. He's just kind of like, it's like he acts like, oh, he's just one of the guys, even when he's the best player. So I kind of feel like, this could be something. Give him a little bit of time. But yeah, it's a big question mark to put all this stuff together. And then 25 games later, you're supposed to be ready to play.
Well, I just have questions about them, like defensively on the wing. And even questions about like DeAndre Ayton, and then how's Chris Paul going to hold up offensively and defensively, and just his health throughout the playoffs. It's just kind of tough because when you construct a team this way that's really top heavy, like those guys on the top, they gotta carry the load, every series, and that's tough. I mean, you can say that about every playoff team where you have your better players trying to, you need them to play well, but for them, it's especially important. I mean, they're an injury away from just they have no shot. Like, I mean, it's just, that's when you construct a team that way, that's kind of how it goes. So,
and yeah, I think a lot of it's going to come down to matchups. If they have to play the Clippers first, that's going to be a serious issue. Because of the Clippers, wing versatility and the way that they're capable of playing defense, assuming Kawhi is healthy enough. So yeah, I think, Phoenix has, really, unbelievable talent. And I think, I would love to see Phoenix play Dallas in the playoffs. I think that would be a lot of fun. Kyrie going against Durant. And plus, because I feel like Phoenix has a lot of rivals, like the Pelicans don't like them. They were already like Jose Alvarado was on a podcast basically saying like him and Chris Paul, like they're not good. They're not happy with each other. And then Dallas just basically just kicked Phoenix when they were down last year. And so that's a bit of an issue. So it's kind of funny. I feel like Phoenix has a lot of enemies in the Western Conference, among the playoffs teams. So that I feel like their whole run is going to be quite interesting.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. But yeah, I think I think the Western Conference playoffs from the first round, from the first game are just going to be spectacular. That's going to be like every night you're going to be like, oh my God, who's playing tonight? What's going to happen? How's this going to go? Because of how ridiculously, I'm not going to say wide open. I just think it's topsy-turvy. It's just so up and down because of the guys injured. There's so many teams right around 500 that are all smacked into each other. Sacramento is going to make the playoffs for the first time in a long time. So I'm really, really interested in that. But before let's finish on the NBA, I wanted to talk about, watching the All-Star Saturday night stuff last night. Listen, I say this every year. I get NBA All-Star stuff is about the kids. Like that's who it's for. That's who they're catering to. That's the point of the whole thing. But so I'm watching last night, and they're doing the skills competition. I mean, good Lord, it goes on and on. There's like 3 different events, and then there's I feel like we've made it. We've now added so many other things into it that don't need to be there. And same thing with the 3-point contest. You now got the two shots that are 5 steps behind the 3-point line to add more points into it. So it's it's starting to look like a circus a little bit. The 3-point shootout is still really, that's still the best event. It's still fun to watch. You see, Damian Lillard managed to win it for the first time, which is a little bit surprising. But yeah, so that was, I'm just kind of watching to enjoy the kind of the atmosphere and that kind of stuff. I don't really care about who wins. The slam dunk contest, they put a guy from the G League, Mac McClung, in there this year, and he's actually signed by the Philadelphia 76ers now, so he's actually in the NBA. And he won the slam dunk contest, and honestly, he had the best dunks by far. Like it was, he came with some original stuff and really made it exciting. Plus, he looks like he's a short white guy. Like, he looks like he's about, 6'2", and so he's jumping up in there, doing all of these things, and it was like, okay, I think that works. So it kind of just brought a smile to my face, like, oh, well, this is what you do with the dunk contest. Let's bring in 2 or 3 of these G League guys, right? Like, you bring more attention to them, right? NBA teams get to see them. Maybe they get signed to a contract, maybe not, whatever. But they've got, time to work on all this stuff, and they'll actually care about winning the slam dunk contest. These NBA players who are making hundreds of millions of dollars, like the big stars, are not gonna participate in the slam dunk contest because they don't need to. There's no upside for them. Like if they do well, everybody's like, oh, of course you did. If they don't do well, then it's an embarrassment. So I think this is a good way. I think people have been coming up with fixes for the slam dunk contest forever. I'm not suggesting that I have the fix. I'm just suggesting that this is a good idea. Maybe put 1 or 2 of these guys in it every year, because I think it added a different element to it. You could tell that there was like a story behind it, and you could see all the other players go crazy when he would make these dunks. So I thought it was really cool, and it's got to be I'm sure it's a fun event to go to.
Yeah.
But so those are my thoughts on that. I'm interested to see what happens in the draft tonight, because they're going to draft the teams right before the game. So we'll see. I'm interested to see how
that's
that goes.
That's a good wrinkle. That's good that they're doing it right before the game. I think that's, rather than doing it a few days beforehand, it kind of I think that increases the drama. It's like they pick the team and then they go play right away.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and they have that interesting fourth quarter where there's a certain amount of points you have to get. So you keep playing until you get that. So it made last year's game in the fourth quarter actually fun. Like the teams were actually trying to beat each other, which is I guess the point of the whole thing.
Right.
All right. Any other NBA thoughts?
No, I don't think so.
All right, so this is for the ending. I want to send out a message to the Kansas City Chiefs fans. First of all, congratulations on winning the Super Bowl, your second in 4 years, and congratulations on looking at the prospect of having Patrick Mahomes for the next 10 plus years. I think that's amazing. you're in a lucky place in sports when you know your team is going to be in contention for as long as this great player is on our team. That's a really great place to be. That being said, though, some of the Kansas City Chiefs fans have been acting a fool, and this nonsense that Travis Kelce has been putting out there that you guys didn't believe in us. See what happens. Everybody doubted us. We're proving everybody wrong, and nobody picked us, and all of this nonsense. Okay. So my message to the Chiefs fans is this: guys, relax, enjoy it. You won the championship. Okay, you've got the trophy. Nobody can take that away from you. Okay, there's nobody out there who's not sitting there saying the Chiefs are great. Mahomes is great. The Chiefs are great. There's nobody out there who thinks that, oh, well, they're not that good. They're kind of overrated. We're not saying that. Nobody's saying that. We're saying you're great. We think you're great. It's really entertaining. I'm really glad. Like, if they're the NFL's next dynasty, I'm thrilled with it because you guys are a hell of a lot more fun to watch than the goddamn Patriots. So I think this is way better than, this is the example that I want to point out to you is just look at the Patriots the last 20 years and look how it went with them, right? Once you win a lot, everybody starts hating you. The Patriots started pushing back against that, right? They started doing all kinds of shady things they shouldn't have been doing, right? I'm not going to go out and call them cheaters, but listen, they were doing some stuff they shouldn't have been doing. They were trying to look for unfair advantages. There's no doubt about that. Okay? Every time somebody said, oh, hey, what about this? They were like, oh, there's nothing to see. You got nothing. Their response to any kind of criticism was to attack everyone. Okay? Instead of just enjoying the fact that you're great. So don't make the same mistake that the Patriots made. Okay? The Patriots trying to kill everybody with their cold efficiency. There's nothing fun about cold and efficient. It's not fun. There's nothing exciting about it. You guys are exciting. You're fun. You seem to play with great joy. The Midwestern people are really nice people. You guys seem to really love supporting your team, and you always have. I think this is fantastic that you've got this great thing going on, but keep it classy, okay? Just.
Yeah, you got to enjoy winning because you don't know, you don't know when it's going to end, and if it does, you don't know when it's going to come back around. You gotta. I mean, you've won it twice. You've been in the Super Bowl 3 times. Mahomes has won the MVP twice. You're really good. Okay, reasonable people are telling you that you are really good. Okay. You've gotten your due, okay? And second of all, how much do you really need to get your due when you win the championship? Who cares? Literally. I mean, obviously you guys didn't care that people were, you didn't care so much about people saying they didn't think you were going to win that you then didn't go out and try to win. So what's, it's something people seem to love the nobody believes in us thing. And they'll just try to pull that out whenever they want to. And it's just, a lot of times it's pretty ridiculous. But, I guess in order to be a professional athlete, you kind of have to be into some of that stuff, I guess, in order to have the motivation to, to just keep getting better. So, fine. It is what it is. They may do that because everyone's always looking for the next new thing, and they want to catch it before it happens, so they can say I predicted it. So yeah, next year people might not pick the Chiefs. So what?
Well, it came out after the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are the favorite to win it next year, so
right.
So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I just think listen, man, you got the greatest thing. This is the greatest thing in the world for a sports fan. You've got a team that's just going to keep on giving it to you year after year after year. You're going to be in contention for Super Bowls for at least the next 10 years. Don't freak out. Don't attack everybody. Now, that being said, all the stuff they said at the parade, that's fine. I don't care what you say at the parade. When you're celebrating it and you guys are all having a great time and it's a party, no problem at all. But lay off you guys all picked against us. You guys all didn't believe in us. Come on. Right. Honestly, just be really good. That's all you got to do. Just be really good.
Yep.
You know, I mean, listen, I know we complain a lot as Dolphins fans, but look, you know, we don't have, we've had some success when it comes to South Florida. The Heat have won 3 championships in my lifetime. The Marlins have won the World Series twice. Like, honestly, we haven't been, you know, yes, I know the Dolphins have had a long drought. I get it. But, you know, that being said, we don't have, you know, even in South Florida, we don't have a whole lot to complain about.
Yeah. Yeah, so just enjoy it, you know, and like, yeah, people are gonna, you know, people will jump on the Bengals or they'll jump on the Bills or the, I don't know, the Chargers or the Jaguars or, you know, other teams in the AFC. They'll be saying that, and you know, maybe some of those other teams will win something. It's not like the Chiefs are literally going to win the Super Bowl every single year. You know, that's not possible. But yeah, the Chiefs are really good. And by the way, the Patriots have gotten their due. You know, people did really hate them, but I mean, you know, you can't. At the end of the day, people can't deny they won the championship 6 times over 20 years. Like, they were over 20 years, they were really, really good, and no one can really deny that. So, you know, over the course of history, you get your due. So you don't need to go nuts about, you know, oh, they didn't believe in us, but they will. That's what athletes do.
All right. So that's the excuse me. That's our show for today. Make sure you like, subscribe, tune in whenever possible, and we will see you next week.